And it's BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia at heart and from around the globe. And hello, everybody, and welcome to this special 4th of July episode of Black Box Online Radio. Today is July 4th, and to all my fellow Americans out there, happy Independence Day. I hope you're doing wonderful. Today is also a Thursday, and I'm going to be trying to go live more regularly on Thursdays. And there's something I would like to add. Firstly, on Thursdays, we're going to say hello to the fox here. He's cool. I've known him for years. Now, as far as everything else goes, I also just wanted to stop by, talk to you guys about the channel. And Charlie is here. Hey, Charlie, how's it going? Charlie says, how are you, Black Box? Well, as some of you guys know, I recently had bronchitis, and I'm just trying to get over that. So I would like to deliver a big thank you to everyone who tuned in to Ripper Wednesday. Every Wednesday, I do a segment about Jack the Ripper, and I appreciate everyone who left some comments on that. That one was the kind of the day after dealing with peak bronchitis, and I just appreciate everyone who tuned in because I was responding to the FBI profile for Jack the Ripper that had been created by John Douglas. John Douglas is one of the most famous psychological profilers out there, and one of the things that I've wanted to do for this true crime channel for a long time is to go through the John Douglas books, and I have a whole list. I have a whole set of ones that I want to explore. And I really do want to know more about what he thinks about Jack the Ripper, because every Wednesday I do a segment about Jack the Ripper, and he has some very good observations. But do you guys ever have those experiences when you're watching a true crime documentary? Maybe you're reading the book, or maybe you're just tuning into something in a different way, some type of true crime content, and you think, I know that this person is an absolute expert on this stuff. I know that this person has the credentials. Maybe they have a degree in criminology. Maybe they work for the FBI like John Douglas. Maybe they've done this for 35 years. But still, you disagree with them because of your own life experiences, because of your own ideas. And I just love those moments. And recently on Zodiac Monday, I was talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson on a video that he made for his show Star Talk. And he said some similar things about how when you look at the mysteries of the universe, there's something that is fascinating about just hearing about what other people think, hearing about other people's points of view and takes on the subject. What do people think about things like supernovas and quantum physics? With the true crime world, it's all the same because it's all about human behavior, the mysteries of human behavior. And that's the stuff that I'm hoping to do more on the Tuesday and Thursday live streams. And yes, I'm going to try my best to do True Crime Talk Radio in the morning every Tuesday and Thursday. I'm aiming to start like today at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which of course will be different for people in Central, Mountain, and Pacific. But I'm going to try my best because it's something that I really like to do, connecting with you guys. Like Andrew WVA is here. He says, Happy 4th. Happy 4th to you, Andrew WVA, my brother from West Virginia. God bless the United States of America. Charlie says, Happy 4th as well. Happy 4th of July to you, Charlie. And we have Robert who says, Hello, Ned. Good to see you. Good to see you too, Robert. Thank you for tuning in to this live stream. But I really am aware that you guys are very fascinated with the Zodiac Killer mystery. And on the most recent episode that I did called the BBOR State of the Union, I wanted to share some things about how I would go through things like maybe John Douglas's books and look at how it could be relevant to the Zodiac Killer. Look at how any type of psychologist could be making observations about human behavior. How could it be relevant to the Zodiac Killer? And also D.B. Cooper. Because when you're talking about human behavior, when you're talking about psychology, when you're talking about why people do things, it's all connected. And I really think that there's just no real end to this. But because this is a 4th of July live stream, I know it's True Crime Talk Radio in the morning, but because this episode is for the 4th of July, does anybody have any 4th of July traditions that they would like to share? Somebody posted something on Instagram earlier today. They posted a photo of red, white, and blue Rice Krispie treats. And I was just looking at that stuff and I was thinking, oh my gosh, it just took me back 28 years when we would eat those as a kids. We had this massive box of red, white, and blue Rice Krispies that we got for the 4th of July. And of course, they made the Rice Krispie treats, but for some reason, they just stayed around for months and months and months. And even to the point where they were so incredibly stale, yet my siblings and I just wanted to keep eating the red, white, and blue Rice Krispie treats because of the wonderful colors. You gotta love the patriotism that you can get from a cereal box. And, we just kind of would push through that. Mr. JSV is here. He says, "Have a great day, guys. 4th of July and the fireworks. Is anybody going to be going out to watch the fireworks tonight? As you know, I am in Asia now, always coming to you at West Virginia at heart, from West Virginia at heart, but now I'm around the globe, so I won't be watching the fireworks, but I might be catching some of them on the television. Oh, they used to air a very good episode of the fireworks from Washington D.C., the ones that were done by the mall, and but we are talking about true crime talk radio in the morning, so one thing that I thought about doing for this episode was looking at the questions and comments that you guys have left on some previous episodes. And I know that most of you follow the Zodiac Killer mystery, so we can always begin with some stuff like that. And there's one here from Jeremy P that I think is a very good thing for this type of general discussion where it's not exactly talking about somebody's specific true crime theory, not exactly talking about somebody's suspect for Jack the Ripper, the Zodiac, or DB Cooper. But this is a comment from Jeremy that came in on the Zodiac Killer News Report from June 24th. Has anyone following the case for some time noticed how it can be making you a little crazy yet? Like you see intelligent guys turning into complete nutcases. Wonder if there's anything to that. Intelligent guys turning into complete nutcases. Again, I think that Jeremy and I have had somewhat of a different experience because let's not kid ourselves. Let's not deny it. Let's not pretend like it's not there. Some people who follow unsolved mysteries are a little bit far out. And I'm trying to be careful with my language because I've gotten in trouble for this in the past. And it's something to the effect of I think that there are people who are really far out, and let's just use Jeremy's phrasing, a little bit crazy, and they begin exploring these mysteries. I don't necessarily know if I've encountered anyone who's went specifically crazy because of the Zodiac Killer mystery alone, who went specifically crazy because of looking into DB Cooper too much. Like you see the guys in the movies that have like the papers on the wall and they got red string connecting them all together. They did a great graphic of this for an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I mean, where, but I mean, that's a perfect example. That would be my boy Charlie Day, someone who's a little bit off to begin with, the character for the show, and then they're just going down this rabbit hole that is exacerbating their previously established mental conditions. I really can't think of a single person that went too far off the edge because they were reading about the Zodiac Killer too much. It's usually a pre-existing psychological factor. Now, are people who are very intelligent, and I mean very intelligent, getting pulled into this world where they start seeing things that they shouldn't, and they start seeing things that aren't actually there, and they start making connections that they shouldn't make? Yes, double yes, triple tap yes. I mean, let's look at somebody like Gareth Penn, for example, the author of Time 17, the amazing story of the Zodiac Killer in California and Massachusetts, 1966 to 1981. All types of mathematical observations connecting things together with the Morse code and the binary and the radians. And he's just like using these things about how everything that the Zodiac Killer did must be some type of mathematical signature. I don't think Gareth Penn was right about much at all. In fact, I think that Gareth Penn was wrong about a lot of things, or he had a certain creative approach to it. He found certain observations, and then he started forcing the pieces into place, not cherry picking to get a desired result. No, pattern seeking to get a desired result. But I don't think Gareth Penn went completely insane or anything like that. Do I think he pushed the boundaries of ethical behavior? Absolutely, yes, for what he did to his Zodiac Killer suspect, Michael O'Hare, naming him publicly, trying to affect his reputation, surprising him on a radio show. And the defense of guys like Gareth Penn and Ray Grant, who also thinks that Michael O'Hare was the Zodiac Killer, was, well, they think this guy was a serial killer and he got away with it, and they wholeheartedly believe it. So that's why they're doing the things. But we have a comment here from Christopher Valdez who says, the Blue Rock Springs murder was 55 years ago today. Oh, goodness, Christopher. You know, it seems like just the other day I was talking about the 50th anniversary of these Zodiac Killer events. And people were even telling me that there were going to be some meetups in California for the 50th anniversaries. And that was all back in 2018, 2019. And time just keeps going by. And we see more and more true crime cases getting solved, like what's going on with the Long Island serial killer mystery. And the prime suspect who's in prison right now, Rex Heuermann, most likely did it. But where is that ending going to be for the Zodiac Killer mystery? Where's the Golden State Killer ending going to be for the Zodiac Killer mystery? Just the years keep going by more and more. Now, if we want to talk about Jeremy's comment here about how do people deal with that, that's something that I don't really quite know how to comprehend yet. People like Tom Boyd and Mike Morford and Michael Butterfield, who have followed things for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, and just not being able to know the answers. One time, though, I guess to answer the question, I did have that experience where it's just like, I want to know. I just wish that I could have been there at these crime scenes, firstly, to stop the murders from happening, but who was the killer? There is genuinely something in me that has those types of curious responses. And Charlie says, you're right, some people get so obsessed with the mysteries. Now, there are true crime events where people can take things out of control. I don't remember the guy's name. It was back when I would watch the countdown sites, and it was like top 10 murders that were inspired by movies or something to that effect. Not good at all. Not good at all. I'm not glorifying it, but yes, I did watch that video for entertainment, I confess. And there was this one story of a guy who became obsessed with the movie Queen of the Damned that featured Aaliyah, and it also has that track song from David Draymond from Disturbed, and Forsaken was one of what I thought was one of his better songs, except because it was made for the movie and not with the band Disturbed, they I guess it didn't get that much publicity. But this guy watched the movie Queen of the Damned 100 times in a single month, and then he murdered some guy and cut out his brain. I was telling somebody about that once, and they were just like, "Don't ever watch true crime again." And then I was like, it's just a video I saw on YouTube. I'm not going to do that. Don't ever watch true crime again. And that's when I learned from a very late age, later rather than sooner, that people who don't closely follow true crime are not comfortable hearing the details. And I thought it would just be something like that. Oh, yeah, well, I follow Unsolved Mysteries and I saw a video about a true crime story. No, they don't really get that. But Richard Mills says, R.I.P. Captain Crunch, damn those serial killers. Captain Crunch was one of the worst serial killers ever. And did you know that he was also responsible for taking over the boat from Captain Phillips? I'm the captain now. So, terrible, terrible person. Andrew says, my aunt grew up in Vallejo, and she said that there was always referred to as Blue Rock Springs, or she always said that Blue Rock Springs was referred to as Blue Rock Springs because there were so many parks in Vallejo. Zodiac only referred to it as the public park. Now, Andrew, you're trying to say that the Zodiac might not have been extremely familiar with the territory, and everybody thinks that he was. And when you read Robert Graysmith's 1986 book, Zodiac, he just goes through all of it step by step about how he's like hyper-analyzing the back roads. I mean, he makes somewhat of a convincing case, except for the fact that I think Graysmith is absolutely full of crap. And Charlie says, I remember the Queen of the Damned song. Loved it. Great song. Yes, David Draymond from Disturbed. Richard Mills is here. And Andrew says exactly. Well, this is an unsolved case. And this is one of the reasons why I talk about my ideas. Sometimes they're completely wrong, and I have to be like, 5 years ago, I said something. Okay, I shouldn't have said that. I don't think that way anymore. And it was just like that on Wednesday when I was talking about the psychological profile of Jack the Ripper created by John Douglas. I was like, who am I to challenge one of the FBI's greatest profilers? But I'm like, I don't think that's correct. Andrew's doing something very similar, talking about this widely held belief that the Zodiac must have understood Vallejo inside and out. He must have understood the back roads of California inside and out. And just saying, well, wait a second. How do we really know that? I mean, I get that you're making an educated guess or you're making a prediction based on physical evidence. It's not baseless, but still, it's not a certifiable fact. And Imagination2363 has a comment that came in on a post that I made, and it says, I love hearing about theories, interesting theories that I've never thought of. Well, I guess that's why you tune into Black Box Online Radio. And some people have been asking me about why I talk about far out wild theories that I don't believe in, mostly giving everybody a chance, mostly talking about something that has been presented. If somebody genuinely believes this, and I believe that they even have the smallest amount of credibility, sure, I'll explore it. And even if I don't think they have credibility, if they have gone to the level of making a documentary or writing a book, yes, we should talk about that. And now we have some other things here. about psychological profiling. This one comes to us from Chad, who says, excellent video that you did about Jack the Ripper. Perhaps you compare the psychological profile of John Douglas with a contemporary profile that was made by Thomas Bond in the Ripper case. It is remarkably similar. Here's something else that I've learned. Psychological profilers are not completely wrong. They have reasons why they do what they do. I'm going to give you an example. When I was reading John Douglas's psychological profile on Jack the Ripper, I was just thinking, this is so similar to Dr. Todd Grande's psychological profile of the Zodiac Killer. Well, maybe he was late 20s, early 30s, mostly a loner, not a lot of friends, worked a menial job, terrible relationship with his mother. He had some type of internalized anger. Who am I talking about? Jack the Ripper or the Zodiac Killer? Guess what? It's both. And the thing that I was so critical of Zodiac, Jack the Ripper, any unsolved serial killer mystery is there's this widely held belief that a serial killer has to be some type of sad, lonely man. But that's not true at all. So many serial killers murder their partners regularly. So many serial killers have access to partners, even if they're short-term relationships. I was just thinking of a serial killer named Tony Abels, who was called the Tampa Rat, and his MO was mostly murdering his girlfriends. He was given way too many chances in life. But then you also have people like Anthony Robinson, the shopping cart killer, who would bring women to hotel rooms, do some drugs with them, and murder them. He's not exactly the sad, lonely man hiding in the shadows, waiting to grab the woman as she's walking out to her car. These types of behaviors are very broad. Captain Jenks is here. Firstly, I know this is off topic, Captain Jenks. Are you the real Captain Jenks? Tom, is that you from Howard Stern? If it is the real one, please let me know. I'm anticipating. Captain Jenks says, my theory with the Zodiac letters is that they would have been pre-written before the crimes were committed. The spacing between the details of the crime were added in after he committed the crimes. You know Captain Jenks? Oh, you're not the real Captain Jenks. What is his name? Tom Cipriano. He made some of the best prank calls in the history of the world. But as far as your theory, back in 2020, I was on your team. I was in that camp. I was looking at these things like, the Zodiac seems so methodical that everything he's doing must be done purely by design. The ciphers were all planned and pre-written, and he's releasing them meticulously at certain times. The letters could have been planned and pre-written, and he's releasing them meticulously at certain times. Now, what I think you're saying is, and Captain Jenks, you can correct me if I misstate something. Do you think that the Zodiac would have looked at the situation? Okay, he has like a complete blueprint. Maybe even he made a rough draft of the letter, and then he added in certain details after the murder took place. So, I think that's a defendable position if that's what you do think, because there are so many pieces of esoteric language that are found in the Zodiac letters that are directly relevant to the crime scenes. Talking about how many shots were fired, no matter how well you plan a crime like that, you won't know that you're going to fire 10 shots. Look at the Gaviota shooting. It went out of control. The killer had to fire 26 shots. You don't know that the girl's feet are going to end up pointing toward the west, because what if somebody were coming by and a witness was about to interrupt and obstruct the situation, so you just had to get out of there? But the letters could have been designed ahead of time and then altered. And most famously, the line about how the Zodiac says in the 340 cipher, I hope you're having lots of fun trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show. I don't think there's any feasible way that he could have known that somebody would call into a TV show and do that prank call. And I do believe that that's what he was referring to. So, and Charlie Don't Serve says, the Bjork stalker was interesting to Captain Jenks on Howard Stern while making his bomb. Oh, the Bjork stalker? I'm not familiar with that case, but, you know, Howard Stern is such a famous radio host, and he has such a famous radio program. I would expect that numerous people actually follow that. Last year on the channel, I was talking to you guys about Clay, the serial killer, who called into the show and said he was a serial killer. And there was an even more fascinating story, the one of the Cleveland rapist, where this guy kept very meticulous records of the Howard Stern thing. He would also read the books that were written by the staff members and make notes on them. I couldn't find a single corroborating source. That might have been a dud created for the show. Irish Brummy says, of all the interviews with the experts show, which expert made the most sense to you? Excellent question, Irish Brummy. In 2021, we launched the Interview with the Expert series on the Zodiac Killer channel. And out of all the people that I talked to, I was the host of that program, just in case this is the first time you've ever listened to BBOR, and that series is no longer online. So, out of all of them, who made the most sense? Mostly Mike Morford. I think that he's extremely balanced, level headed. I might not agree with him about a lot of his observations in relation to Macduff, but when he talks about the facts of the case, when he talks about the disappearance of Donna Lass from 1970, I think he's coming at this from a rather clear headed approach. And Richard Grinnell of ZodiacCiphers.com would probably be a close second. And those two guys are the host of the Zodiac Speaking podcast for a reason. With Richard Grinnell, I guess I just have some reservations about his claims that all of these Zodiac letters after 1969, and let's even be generous, after 1971, going all the way to 1987, maybe 2001, that all of these letters are authentic. So I guess I disagree with everybody about something. And now here's another one that you might not be expecting, and that would be Druser, Andrew Gray, who was the first bonus episode on the Zodiac Killer Interview with the Expert series. And Druser had a lot of good points about how he's just looking at things from the police reports, and he's providing explanations about why he thinks this. He is very good at citing his sources, something that I get into trouble for all the time, because I just start running my mouth on live streams like this, and it's like, wait, what page in that book was it that is that? So that becomes a little bit confusing. And Charlie says, I remember hearing about the killer that was obsessed with Howard Stern. That was the Cleveland rapist, right, Charlie? And he says, oh, Ricardo Lopez was known as the Bjork Stalker. He was a Uruguayan-American pest exterminator who attempted to murder the Icelandic singer Bjork. Wow. I am so glad he got busted. A world without Bjork is not a good place to be. Have you ever seen the movie Dancer in the Dark? It'll break your heart. And he wanted to murder Bjork with a TV behind him. Some people are just twisted, and that's what the original question was. Like, does reading about true crime turn people into individuals like that? I don't think so. Everything that I've encountered over the years is the case that somebody has some type of pre-existing mental issue or pre-existing psychological issue, or it could even be just dark triad traits. Those would be psychological issues, but the dark triad traits would lead people to commit crimes that are done in the name of narcissism, psychopathy, doing things to fuel their own excitement. Pedro Fernandez is here. He says, hope you're well, Ned. Hey, Pedro, happy 4th of July. Oh, yes, I'm all well. Just a little bit rough in the throat, but still, I wanted to stop by and say happy 4th of July to all of you guys. And Pedro has been a long-time listener to this program, even back in the days of the Black Box when there was the logo on the screen, but for a very long time. Much appreciated. And now we have some other comments that have come in here. And we have one that came from Cat Daddy Steve, who said, he's the only person who responded to my polling question about what are your plans for the 4th of July? And Cat Daddy is going to hunker down with the cats. Yeah, I could not think of a better way to spend the 4th of July. I hope they don't get bothered by the fireworks. And this is something else that I want to share with you guys. On Black Box Online Radio, I now release shorts, but I also put posts out, and I'm going to be aiming to put those out on a daily basis, either a polling question or I'll be sharing one of the images for the show. A big shout out to Dennis G, who has really helped make a lot of the images for Black Box Online Radio. And he sends a lot of graphics in that are used on the show, like on Zodiac Monday and Cooper Friday, what you see going by on the screen. And Charlie Don't Surf says, I was reading about the Dark Triad last week. With the Dark Triad, narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism, it really is quite saddening that so many people have these traits. And if you read a book like The Sociopath Next Door by Dr. Martha Stout, you'll just see that countless people have these traits. Someone's annoying ex-boyfriend, somebody's therapist, your boss. So many people have dark triad traits. And it doesn't mean they're a complete psychopath or even a complete narcissist, but they might have traits of narcissism. And that's another thing for me that became very frustrating about society. And we have another comment that's come into here from Captain Jenks, who says, Do you think the Zodiac lived near Washington and Cherry Street? I really tend to think that he did not, and that he committed the murder in a crime scene that wasn't close to his home. And here's another thing that I disagree with the profilers on. He only did that because, let me back up for a second. When psychological profilers think that the Zodiac committed the murder of Paul Stein, the taxi driver, near Washington and Cherry Street, and he had to have lived near the crime scene, I think that they're just looking at the facts that he wasn't seen or witnessed anywhere else. So some people are thinking he didn't leave the crime scene. Too many possibilities exist. Too many alternatives exist for that to be 100% true. I simply can't accept that. I don't know what you guys think. If you want to challenge me with that, put your ideas in the comment section down below. Pedro says, "You have come a long way, always good. Now excellence is the norm." Well, thank you, Pedro. And when I look back on my choices with this channel, it really was a little bit far out. Just having the black box on the screen with sparks in the background and just talking about any subject. And I would try to do 20 minutes a day, 7 days a week. Looking back, it's somewhat of a questionable choice, but at the same time, I enjoyed the channel so much. I just absolutely loved every minute of it. I thought about Black Box Online Radio all day, and there'd be different phases in the channel that are just enjoyable and likable in different ways. And the only thing that would ever prevent me from making content here on BBOR is if there's some type of offline issue, but I love doing the show. And Charlie says, "They really do. It makes me sad because most dark triad types are that way because of childhood trauma." Absolutely. And the thing that doesn't get talked about enough with criminals is boundaries. They either didn't have strong boundaries as a kid, or they learned how to manipulate the boundaries. They learned how to move around them. And this is quite similar to the dark triad trait of Machiavellianism, where they think that they're superior to the laws of society so they can move around them in their own way. Pedro Fernandez says, "Don Chaney lived on Day Street in, gotta scroll down for a second. He lived on Day Street in San Francisco during the early years." Yes, he did, but Don Chaney then moves out of the Bay Area and goes to Southern California after the Lake Herman Road murders. Captain Jang says, "I always wondered how the Zodiac got to San Francisco if he took a taxi to get there." Captain Jenks, you are asking the $1,000,000 question. This is something that I can't even begin to tell you a certified answer to, because the Zodiac commits the murder of Paul Stein, right? Paul Stein's at Mason and Geary, and he's in front of a place called the Pinecrest Diner. What was the Zodiac doing before? Was the Zodiac in San Francisco by bus, by train? Did he have a car there? And was he trying to do some roundabout way to get back to his car? I mean, I really do not know. I've always just kind of thought about that. What was the Zodiac doing all day before the Stein murder? And most likely, I think that he was just contemplating every step over and over again. And Andrew says he probably parked his car nearby. Yeah, parked his car nearby the Stein murder, told Paul Stein to drive him to the location, got out, maybe hid in the alcoves that were in the houses, like back against a dark wall in the shadows, maybe changed his clothes, put on a hat, took off the glasses, and nobody ever would have recognized him. The whole Clark Kent disguise. Rather crazy. And he took a bus back into the city. If he were able to do that without getting noticed by any of the members of law enforcement. And we have one from Andrew as well. He could have watched a musical in the evening. Mason and Geary in San Francisco was in the theater district, so it's quite possible that he did, check out one of the plays or something like that. And some people like Adam Ivester of the channel Real Zodiac Kill revealed things that he's pinpointed exactly what the Zodiac was doing, that he was watching a play called Kushigara, a Japanese performance of kabuki theater, and it was, he believes that his suspect would have left midway through the performance and got into Paul Stein's taxi. So it's like everybody would have just thought he was at the play, and it's almost like giving himself an alibi, but not quite. And then his suspect lived near Presidio Heights, or lived near the murder of Paul Stein. And it says we lost the chat for a second, but now it says that it is successfully connected. Now we have a comment here on the Zodiac Killer News Report from May 27th, and this is the episode that I did about suspect Waterson, and I was talking about why there are so many concentrations of serial killers on the West Coast. And it's from Orchestration Online, who says, "You're right, Washington State is a tenuous connection, but there is an area called the Lake District. Not that I put any stock in that, but tons of roads, neighborhoods, and parks and regions are named after bodies of water in California. It would be hard for an accidental inference not to be drawn from these locations." Okay, so he did talk about why there are lots of serial killers in California and Washington State, but this comment is actually about something that is a little bit bigger, and that is, why did the Zodiac killer commit crimes at Lake Herman Road, at Blue Rock Springs, at Lake Berryessa, Washington Street, if you're going to count Wash as a body of water? And what it sounds like Orchestration Online is just saying, it's not uncommon to name a location after a body of water. All right, there's a park near Blue Rock Springs Park. There's a road near Lake Herman Road. By the way, guys, I got this notification that the chat was disconnected. If you are online, can you please put something in the comment section down below, just so I can make sure that everybody is still there? Cat Daddy Steve, thank you so much. Just checking. Now, we have a comment that came in on the most recent Zodiac Monday, and this is about the Gaviota shooting. The murders of Robert Domingos and Linda Edwards. You guys might have noticed that I've been talking about that a lot because there were some new pieces of media that came out. There was the episode 4 on Planet X Filmworks that was done by Ross Geraci, and also he appeared on Drew Beeson's show, which I guess has now been renamed the Drew Cast, and he used to call it the Zodcast, but Drew also talks a lot about D.B. Cooper, and he's now doing other videos about missing persons cases. And this is about the Gaviota shooting. I do believe that the Gaviota was pre-Zodiac, and he learned his struggle there. He evolved his MO, and eventually it became his alter ego. Ray Davis, I also believe, was pre-Zodiac. Also, Zodiac got very lucky after the San Francisco murder. He was far different in bravado and approach than before. We've been talking a lot about psychological profilers. One person who's a psychological profiler would mostly agree with Chris, who wrote out this comment here, saying that the Zodiac got away with the Stein murder. He proved that he could commit murder, walk down a city street and do it. He could shoot someone, like in a taxi, and just walk away and get away with it, so he didn't have to do it anymore. That was Richard Walters' take on the subject. Gaviota was a pre-Zodiac crime. It could be. He learned his struggle there, that he had to commit the crimes in a different way, and he also evolved the MO, and eventually became his alter ego. I think what Chris is trying to say is, in 1962, Ray Davis is murdered. And then, in 1963, Robert Domingos and Linda Edwards are murdered. And it's almost like somebody got away with the murder in Southern California. Now, he wants to try and get away with the crime in a different way. He's doing something a little bit more intense by murdering 2 people instead of 1. And Captain Jenks says, maybe Zodiac or family owned a car dealership or mechanic shop, and he had access to different vehicles. Well, that'd be something. Although you'd think that the vehicles would still be able to be tracked some ways. Like if people actually saw the license plate numbers, then they could track them. But I guess just saying something like, maybe it was a Ford Falcon, maybe it was a Chevy Corvair. Not a lot of evidence for that one. But we do have another comment. Hey, Cat Daddy Steve, I actually see your comment here when you said on the Zodiac news report for this week, love the new, deeper voice. It's the bronchitis, my friend. It won't be sticking around forever. Well, maybe, because I don't really like to slow down when it comes to anything. And I do apologize, though, because I had to. The YouTube shorts that I release on Facebook, Instagram, and, of course, here on YouTube have been at a very slow pace this week, just because of lack of energy and just trying to get back to 100%. But it's the 4th of July, you know. We have to celebrate, and as already stated in the comment section, that this was the murder of Darlene Ferrin, although some people insist that the crime would have taken place on the 5th of July, 1969, the shooting of Mike Michaud. There was a rather interesting video that was put out by the channel Bad Things True Crime, and they were talking about how the only real account that we have of the Zodiac Killer comes from Brian Hartnell after the Lake Berryessa stabbing. And that channel, Bad Things True Crime, gets a lot of heat. They get a lot of pushback because they get accused of not really doing a whole lot of research, or even not exploring the material intensely, like not having a strong familiarity with the material before they make episodes. But the problem is that they just make episodes over and over again about the Zodiac Killer or about all types of true crime cases. And ultimately, it's a ridiculous statement. The only physical encounter we have with a physical description from a surviving victim that we have is Brian Hartnell at Lake Berryessa. Not at all. Mike Mageau provided an enormous amount of information after the Blue Rock Springs shooting on July 4th of 1969, saying that he was 5 feet 8 inches tall, 195 to 200 pounds. He was on the shorter side, so that's a big challenge to some people who are pushing 6'2" suspects. He was somebody who had reddish brown curls in his hair. He only saw the face on the profile. He couldn't make out any discernible features except saying that the face was really big. You might want to say that Mike Mageau was not a reliable witness, but to say that he didn't survive the Zodiac Killer and provide a description, absolutely false. But I do have to give credit to Bad Things True Crime because they do talk about these stories, they do ask questions, and they present them in a very engaging way. It's very easy to watch their videos. We have a comment from Melissa Rose Tappa, who is the webmaster of ZodiacKillerBomb.com. Melissa, as well as her husband Jeff, have a suspect named Loringdale Hill. Loringdale Hill was a naval aviation mechanic and helicopter pilot, and he also survived the USS Enterprise fire on January 14th of 1969. And they think that he committed the Lake Herman Road murders, went on an aircraft carrier for 6 months, came back 2 days before the Blue Rock Springs shooting, 55 years ago today, the 4th of July, and committed the murder of Darlene Ferrin. Here's Melissa's comment. Great episode and analysis, Ned. You'll not be surprised that the knot that was used to tie up Robert Domingos and Linda Edwards at the Gaviota Beach shooting was the Marlin hitch knot, and it was also called a boat knot and used by sailors. Also, if the 1963 murder was the work of the Zodiac, it would have been one of the earliest, and it would have been sloppy, leading to his attempts to burn down the shed of evidence. And this leads me to believe that it could be the work of an early serial killer honing his craft. Lastly, I highly agree that the murders were hetero animosity, but keep in mind that someone can hold animosity toward multiple targets, not solely young couples and lovers' lanes. It is possible that someone capable of this could hold deep-seated anger toward couples, young women, teenage girls, or even men behind the wheel of a cab. I think that you guys are mostly in agreement when it comes to the Zodiac Killer's actions at Gaviota. That he was, if this were the Zodiac, if, unconfirmed, but if it were the Zodiac, it was an example of pre-Zodiac activity that was very sloppy, and he really tried to improve that over the years, committing crimes in ways where he was less likely to get caught. And Charlie says, how could I forget that Darlene Ferrin was murdered by the Zodiac today? Well, I don't exactly do direct tributes and anniversaries to the victims anymore because I want to let them truly rest in peace because we talk about them so much on the regular episodes. But in this one, you guys were asking about Darlene Ferrin. I'll mention her name, and I won't say, too much. It's just we can remember her, and we can also recognize that she didn't deserve to be murdered, no matter what happened. But I'm actually going to have to cut this live stream a little bit short. I'm going to go rest my voice and try to get over this horribly annoying bronchitis. I'm going to chill with a glass of tea with the Fox here. But more importantly, whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you have a wonderful 4th of July. If you like going out and watching fireworks, I hope you do some of that. And then I hope that if you don't celebrate the 4th of July, you're not in America, have a wonderful day all the same. And thank you so much, Charlie. Thank you so much, Mr. JSV. And, Charlie says you're not the only streamer that's sick. I guess things are just going through the internet, almost like an internet computer virus. I shouldn't even joke about that because that will be real. Nanotechnology in the future. All right, thank you, Mr. JSV, and thank you, Andrew. And Charlie says, thanks for going live, even though you're sick. I'm not dead yet, and I'm not giving up yet. And I like to just resume normal life. When I'm sick or something like that, I just want to get back into the swing of things. I don't want to just be sitting in a chair, sitting on the bed, and just thinking, I can't wait for this to end. I like to be back in the world of, Black Box Online Radio. All right, you guys all have a wonderful day. Happy 4th of July, and take care.